In Thebes, Egypt, 1290 BC, High Priest Imhotep engaged in an affair with Anksunamuen, the mistress of Pharaoh Seti I. When the pharaoh discovered their tryst, Imhotep and Anksunamuen murdered the monarch. As Seti's guards arrive, Imhotep fled while Anksunamuen killed herself. After Anksunamun's burial, Imhotep and his priests stole her corpse and traveled to Hamunaptra, the city of the dead. He placed Anksunamun's organs in 5 canopic jars, then chanted a spell from the Book of the Dead, summoning Anksunamun's soul from the underworld. As the ceremony was about to be completed, the pharaoh's guards interrupted it and sent her soul back to the underworld. Imhotep's priests were all mummified alive, while Imhotep was sentenced to immortal agony. Condemned to suffer the Hamdi curse, his tongue was removed and he was buried alive with flesh-eating scarab beetles. He was buried under high security, sealed away in a sarcophagus at the feet of a statue of the Egyptian god Anubis, and kept under strict surveillance by warriors known as the Medjay, for all humanity would be doomed should he resurface. This is basically the story of the mummy that happened several thousand years ago. Until 3 years ago, 1923, a unit of the French Foreign Legion accidentally found Hamunaptra. The legionnaires attempted to open up the tomb for its treasures, but they encountered an army of Tuareg warriors. In the movie, only 2 people escaped alive from the attack. The main character of the movie, Rick O'Connell, and Benny Gabor, who was later consumed by scarabs, Lan said. Then where are we now? This was a dimly lit concealed room. Aside from a metal window, there was nothing else. No, there was a blond man sitting with his head down plus 5 black-haired men and women lying on the floor. Zero looked around and said, this is probably a jail, right? And one that was built a long time ago. Lan, were there any jails in the movie? Lan touched her forehead and said, yes. The main character O'Connell was one of the only 2 people that escaped from Hamunaptra. He obtained the key to Imhotep's coffin. This key could also open the Book of the Dead and the Book of Amun-Re, 2 of the most important items in the movie. However, the key was stolen by the heroine's brother, Jonathan Carnahan, when he was in a brawl in a bar. In order to search for Hamunaptra, Evelyn came to the jail to save O'Connell. We should be at a time when Evelyn is about to save O'Connell. Just like the previous movies, the movie should start when other people become aware of our existence. This blonde man is probably the main character, O'Connell. Zheng laughed. It seems like we are lucky this time around. We have 11 people including the newbies, so the difficulty of this movie shouldn't be that high. I've also seen The Mummy, but this isn't really a horror movie though. Lan also laughed. Yeah, this isn't a horror movie, but even if it isn't, as long as the movie is dangerous and has a high mortality rate, it will fit God's criteria. So our deduction is confirmed, the movie doesn't have to be a horror movie 11-man difficulty, we just have to be careful and it shouldn't be that dangerous. Tenji was very excited. Treasures of Ancient Egypt and the legendary Book of the Dead and Book of Amura. God, I can read hieroglyphics also, even though I am not fluent in them. I want to read the contents of these 2 books. This is amazing. As they were talking, Yingkang looked at her watch then said. What does it say on the watch? It's crammed with words. The others then looked at their own watch. There was no countdown this time, only words. Zheng immediately walked near the window for better lighting. Eliminate Imhotep. Reward each member with a rank D reward. There was also 5,000 meters under it, O'Connell. Zheng read it out. When he read the name O'Connell, the blonde man's body glowed. Zheng smiled bitterly. It seems like we are confined within a range, 5,000 meters around him. Otherwise we will get erased by God. There are more words below. After Imhotep is resurrected, Team India will enter this world. Killing a normal member will be rewarded 2,000 points and a rank C reward, killing an unlocked member will be rewarded 7,000 points and a rank B reward. Having a member killed by the other team will deduct 1 point, killing a member of the other team will earn 1 point. The final amount multiplied by 2,000 will be rewarded by every remaining member. Everyone fell into a silence as Zheng read it. Then he turned around and looked at the 5 of them. No, there were also the 5 newbies that were getting up. He muttered. So we are going to encounter another team. And judging from this message, this fight will be inevitable. Lan and the others didn't look at the newbies. They all turned to Zheng. As long as the other team is even slightly stronger than us, they will want to kill us. Once they kill one of our members, we can only kill one of them back. Otherwise all of us will probably be erased by the end of the movie. Who has 2,000 points to spare for the negative score? So we can only fight back once someone opens fire, then only one team can leave alive. The 5 newbies got up from the ground. A woman immediately screamed as she patted her body then ran to the corner of the room. The other 4 people were making a loud disturbance. There were 4 men and 1 woman this time around. A 40-something muscular bald man, a 30-something gentleman with glasses, a 20-something young man with a baby face, and a boy about 11 or 12 years old. The woman was gorgeous with long silky black hair, wearing a sexy long dress. She was 1.7 meters tall. If it wasn't that for her scared expression, she'd definitely be a stunner. Zheng sighed as he looked at the newbies, then he turned to Lan. Explain the situation to them. Lan nodded with a bitter smile, then she began to explain God's world and its rules, including death, enhancements, horror movies. After she received the reward notification, she nodded to Zheng again. The 5 newbies seemed a bit bewildered. Especially since they were in a jail, there was no way to leave. Zheng said to them in a calm voice, just like what she told you, we are currently in a horror movie. Here, you can get injured and die. You might even die in an unimaginable way. You should know if you ever watched horror movies. Like getting infected by a virus, or impaled by an alien, or sucked dry by a vampire, or eaten by numerous scarabs. The 5 newbies shivered, even Lan pinched him. Tell me your occupations and abilities. I will determine if you have the qualifications to join my team by your abilities and character. If you can't become a member, then I will give you a weapon and 100 magical bullets, and also a gold bar. Of course, you can't be 5,000 meters away from this man. The muscular bald man laughed. Gold. You kidding me? I am in a jail. It's probably Wang that betrayed me. Stop with your stories, I don't believe one word of it. Then he punched the wall and left a dent on it. It seemed like he had some actual strength. Zheng and the others looked at him coldly. The bald man suddenly turned to the woman. He walked over to her while laughing filthily. Shit. How could they put me and a woman together? Do they want me to have some fun before the execution? I will do it. This woman is probably here to make me confess, right? If you want to know where the heroine is, then serve me well. Ha ha. As he reached for the woman's dress, a hand from behind grabbed his neck. Then it threw him to a corner. Zheng said, understood. Your occupation is a criminal. Abilities are threatening and bullying, they are useless against our team. And you are too aggressive, I won't give you any weapons. The bald man got up while shaking his head. He spit out some blood and shouted, F***CK. Do you know who I am? How dare you attack me from behind? I am going to beat the shit out of you. Yinkong, who was standing there silently the whole time, suddenly ran up to him, and as he lowered his head to look at her, he felt a sudden pain on his two arms. Both his arms were cut off in that instant, and before he could cry out in pain, Zheng slashed at him with his knife, then he dropped to the floor. Ah! Murder! The criminals are murdering people. The bald man lost his backbone. He was crying with tears. After getting both his arms and legs cut off, he struggled on the floor with just his body. The blood bleeding from his limbs soaked the floor. Zheng took out the hemostasis spray and bandaged quietly and stopped his bleeding. Then he turned to the other 4 newbies and said to them coldly, I will do this to everyone that threatens our team. Once he get more than 5,000 meters away from this man, he will be erased by God. Don't test my patience. The glasses man immediately said, my name is Gao Hong Liang. I'm a computer programmer. I am very confident at programming. Ahem. I wish to join your team. No, even as a test member is okay. I don't have any requirements, you don't even have to give me a weapon. Zheng prevented him from continuing. This man stepped to the side quietly just like he was ordered by his boss. The young man scratched his head and said, my name is Zhang Heng. I am a junior in college. I am also a sub for the Olympic archery team. I am adept at using composite bows. My endurance is also pretty good. Ho ho, can I become a team member? The boy was the strangest of the bunch. He was standing on the wall and was drawing something in air with his finger. After Heng finished his introduction, he turned to them and said calmly, Xiao Henglu. 12 years old. Currently living in a neurological institute as a research subject. I have strong premonitions, I believe your words. After the 3 of them finished introducing themselves, everyone turned to the woman. She was still staring at the bald man in fear. When she noticed everyone was looking at her, she screamed, don't leave me behind, I am Qin Zui Yu. Movie star. Haven't any of you seen my movies? I'm good at write, I am talented at acting, and my singing is also great, please don't leave me behind. She started crying as she said this. Lan walked over to her and embraced her. Just as the men were smiling bitterly at the scene, the door to the jail opened. 3 guards came in through the door, then they dragged O'Connell outside. They acted like they didn't even see Zheng's group or even the bald man who was screaming on the floor. The prison door was left open after they left. Zheng said, good, the mummy has officially started. The 4 of you wait here a minute. Then he turned to the others. Let's discuss what to do with them. Zheng scratched his head. Yinkong said calmly, the best method is cut their limbs and leave them here. We don't have the strength to take care of powerless newbies when we encounter the other team. This is the most rational method. Ji, Tenji, and Lan all shook their heads, but Zero said, right, this is the rule of the battleground, they are still not our comrades. It's not worth it if the 6 of us die trying to save them, and we also can't give them to the other team. Otherwise we will be at negative 8,000 points if they all get killed. Then we will have to kill 4 people to even it out. 3 versus 2, huh? Zheng smiled bitterly, then he turned to the 4 newbies. In other words, his decision determined their fate. If you are afraid of the other team, Henglu picked a few rocks off the wall, crushed them, then put them together. As he was playing with the rocks, he continued, if you are afraid of the other team, then the 4 of us can act as bait. Judging from the information you have given us, you veterans should be much stronger than normal people. That is proven from the human stick on the ground. You also wouldn't want any of your guys to get into danger, right? If the other team has more people than you, better equipment than you, and is more powerful than you, then why wouldn't they want to attack you? Even if they don't attack you in the beginning, how can you be sure they won't do it in the rest of the movie? Instead of risking your lives to test them, why don't you use us as bait instead? Not only was Zheng's group shocked at his words, the other newbies were staring at him in a daze. He continued playing with the rocks and muttered, instead of being left in this jail without any hope, I would rather choose the path with only 1,000 chance of living. I think this is the same for the 3 of you, right? Choose to become bait or choose to die immediately. The other 3 newbies also nodded, but Zheng was stunned. Because this boy gave them a strange feeling, it was just like Xian. Zheng took a deep breath then nodded. Okay, the 3 of you are now under moderation. As to you, he pointed to Henglu. You are now a member of this team. We won't give you any weapons in this movie and we will be monitoring you. But we will also protect you. What do you think? Zheng looked at the others in his team and they all nodded, then he said it to Henglu. Henglu threw away the rocks then stood up. I don't have any problem with it, but when we have to run, you have to carry me, alright? We've been talking for over 5 minutes already, I think O'Connell is about to get released. Zheng then ran outside the jail with everyone. Ji picked up Henglu and said, have you seen this movie? They show you movies in a psychiatric hospital? It's neurological institute, not psychiatric hospital. Have you seen any main characters that die in the beginning of a story? That's why O'Connell is either going to be released or some plot is happening. We must stay within 5,000 meters of him. So if he leaves the jail, we will be in trouble if we can't find his location. Once he gets too far from us, then we will probably die like that bald man. He twirled his black hair as he talked. So similar. He and Xian both give people a nice cold feeling, but it seems like he still has a little bit of empathy, whereas Xian is completely apathetic, Zheng thought. Then he ran over to Ji. Did you say you have a premonition ability? What can you foretell? The future or death? I can foretell when death is coming, don't worry, if any of you are going to die, I will let you know. He laughed coldly, then pulled a string of hair. He put it on his fingertip and blew it. The hair then flew away. The corridor of this jail was filled with prisoners who were looking out through the bars. The corridor formed a half circle and surrounded a stage. In the center of the stage was a gallows. O'Connell was standing on that gallows. Hunglu suddenly asked Zheng in a rushed tone, can the plot be changed? Like if we kill O'Connell now, what will happen to the movie? Zheng was surprised and said, then something will probably change because the plot has changed. Like Imhotep will get resurrected instantly, or we will have to follow another character, or we will have to search for the Hamunaptra ourselves. Are you feeling anything? Hunglu pulled the hair in front of his forehead and said calmly, since the plot can be changed, anything can happen in this movie after we've entered this world. I don't know why, but I feel like O'Connell is going to die during his execution. Even though I don't know how he was rescued in the movie, but if you don't want the plot to change from the main character dying, then you should rescue him in a bit. Zheng was decisive and immediately turned to Zero. Zero, you still have the pistol with the silencer, right? Can you shoot the rope used for hanging from here? Zero looked at the stage then nodded. No problem. I can see everything clearly. If it's just the rope, I can shoot it without anyone noticing. The era was after World War I and before World War II started. There weren't any silencers in this era, so they don't have to worry about people noticing the gunshot. They surrounded Zero from all sides so people couldn't see what he was holding. Then the gallows was activated and O'Connell was hanging in midair. In the original plot, the heroine should have persuaded the warden to release O'Connell, but 10 seconds had passed and there was no order to release him. As O'Connell's breath was getting weaker and weaker, the rope snapped and he fell to the ground. No one noticed the little bullet hole on the ground. Zheng and the others all turned to Hunglu. The boy pulled a hair and put it on his fingertip, then blew it away. He muttered, infinite possibilities. Zheng's group was well dressed compared to the other prisoners. So they easily walked out of the jail. The guards only thought of them as visitors. And this jail wasn't a legit prison anyway. They waited by the entrance of the jail for O'Connell to come out. As they were waiting, Zheng turned to Hunglu. You said you were a research subject in a neurological institute, then you don't have any mental disorders? Hunglu twirled his hair around his finger. Right. I have highly developed central nervous system and cerebral cortex which allow me to sense some strange things like an air of death surrounding us. Some of us are going to die soon. The others looked awkward as he said this. Of course, anyone being told they were about to die from a 12-year-old boy would be like this. They couldn't really get mad at a little boy. Zheng laughed. He crouched down then looked into Hunglu's eyes. Is there really ESP in this world? Premonitions of death can count as ESP, right? Hunglu smiled then pulled a string of hair. Do you know about sixth sense? Everyone is able to infer or sense their future from all the information around them subconsciously. It's just that some people have a stronger sense than others. Among all the senses, those concerning death are the strongest. The effects of my highly developed brain are extraordinary reasoning ability and being able to accept the signals people send out subconsciously about the death they sense. The world through my eyes is gray. I can see everyone's premonitions of their deaths. Those that have a deeper gray color are more likely to die just like you have the deepest color among us. Zheng was surprised and he forced a smile. Inevitable death? Or can it be changed? Just a possibility of dying. Like O'Connell who took a walk on the brink of death. He had an even deeper gray color than you do. Then the movie star Zuiyu crouched next to him with a smile and said, little boy, how deep is the gray color on me? She put out her hand to touch his head. Hunglu slapped her hand away then sneered. Even though the gray on you isn't as deep as his, if I were you, I would write down my will now. You are more susceptible to dying than anyone else. Zuiyu's face immediately turned pale white. Her hand froze there in mid-air. Hunglu then crouched down and twirled his hair around his fingers. There isn't enough information. I don't even know your names and abilities, so I can't do any more deductions. I will continue with the deductions after O'Connell comes out and we get in touch with him. Zheng looked at the other veterans then he said to Hunglu, my name is Zheng Jia, the temporary leader of this team. I probably have the strongest close combat ability. I've unlocked the second stage of the genetic constraint, have the bloodline of a vampire Viscount, intermediate level Qi, and 1 blood energy spell. This is Zhang Ji. He has survived the most movies. This is Zhan Lan. She's weak in combat and stamina, but her enhancements are magical abilities. She currently has 2 spells that can increase a person's speed and stamina. Her reasoning abilities are also quite good. This is Zero. He was a professional assassin. Skilled in long-distance sniping, has a Gauss sniper rifle that has a very long range and power. Given enough distance, he can eliminate multiple enemies. This is Zhao Yingkang, also an assassin, but she's skilled in close combat. She has a dagger that can burn the souls of its victims, very effective against spiritual beings. She's also the second member that unlocked the genetic constraint. This is Qi Tenji. He is an antique appraiser, very knowledgeable with antiques. His is irreplaceable in movies such as this one. Hunglu lowered his head and thought. What's the genetic constraint? It seems like the key to the battle between the teams. Zheng nodded. Yes. A very talented person who was here before deduced the goal of God's world is to force people to evolve. And unlocking the genetic constraint marks the evolution of the organism. Once a team accumulates 3 people that unlock the constraint, even if 1 or 2 of them died, this team will encounter other teams at random. God set a high reward to motivate the teams to kill each other. Once a person is killed by the other team, then only 1 team can leave alive. Hunglu pulled another hair and stared at it quietly. Is that so? If God's goal isn't to have us survive but rather to unlock the constraint at the brink of death, then my deductions are correct. I have been thinking that if killing a member of the other team gives points, why don't both teams trade their newbies away? As long as both teams kill an equal amount, then it doesn't violate God's goal, yet you still get the rewards to enhance yourself. Then why don't the teams use this method? So that's why. Everyone looked at him in confusion. Hunglu didn't explain anything. He twirled his hair around his fingers quietly until O'Connell, Evelyn, and her brother Jonathan came out from the entrance. Everyone then followed behind the cast quietly. After they walked through a few streets, Hunglu muttered, "It's about 5,000 meters. Huh." They looked at him in confusion. Suddenly a notification appeared in their head. One member killed. Team China -1 point. Currently at negative 2,000 points. Members with negative points at the end of the movie will be erased. Everyone was shocked. Hunglu pulled the hair on his forehead and said calmly, "Once someone dies, it will -1 point, yet the other team doesn't get any points. In other words, when I know you are trading me away, I will kill myself first. So the team that betrayed me will lose 1 point and the teams can't continue with trading newbies. At the same time both teams will be forced into battle. God doesn't want us to farm points easily. It wants us to kill each other like goo, until someone evolved to the highest stage. We are the creatures in that container one." They were already -1 point now, which made them feel heavily burdened. Their only choice was to fight. Either kill a person from the other team or the majority of the group would be erased in the end. Aside from Zheng, most of them wouldn't be able to take the 2,000 point hit. "We've been thinking about how to avoid fighting the other team, but who would have guessed now we have to think about how to kill someone from the other team. It feels convoluted." Zheng smiled bitterly. He thought for a bit then continued. "Hunglu, can you analyze the other team's members? And why did God put us in this world before them?" Hunglu twirled a strand of hair. "Based on the information you've given, as long as a team has or used to have 3 unlocked member, then this team will encounter other teams. What I want to say is, we are definitely weaker than Team India. Otherwise God wouldn't put us in this world first." Tenji asked, "Why? Wouldn't we have to go through more danger since we are here first? The desert, the tomb, the mummies, and that Imhotep. Aren't these dangerous?" Hunglu started to pull another hair, but Lan jerked his hand away. "Stop pulling your hair, you're going to become bald." Hunglu waved her hand away. "I want my hair regeneration speed increased due to my special cerebral cortex. Even if I pull out all my hair, it won't take long to grow back. My scalp gets very itchy when I think. It makes me want to scratch, but the itching will get worse the more you scratch. So I can only pull my hair to create a little pain. Leave me alone." "Tenji, who do you think has more advantage in a battlefield? An army that get there first or the later army? Even if the battle took place in a swamp where the environment and organisms are deadly, the first army will have an advantage. Whether it's setting up an ambush or blockade, the group that's more familiar with the environment will have the best hand. Our team has a sniper, an assassin, fighters, and support. We're only missing someone that can set traps like landmines. This team is already very strong, and we also have 2 members that unlock their constraint. If God still considers us the weak side, the other team has a 70% chance of having some magical abilities." Hunglu pulled another hair, but he didn't blow it away. He twirled it around his finger and said, "If that's the case, then I suggest not engaging them face to face. Magical abilities are unpredictable. And we have an advantage in long distance attacks. 0 will be the core in this battle. Snipe them all." Zheng was in a daze. "I never thought you'd be the most violent one here. I just thought of you as a highly intelligent child, right? How do you know all this? Even if you are intelligent, this seemed like too much information." Hunglu smiled deviously. For a moment he seemed like a normal boy. "There are computers in this world. Even though I am a research subject, that doesn't mean I am confined. I can go read on the internet when I have time. And in this age, there's a genre of novels called fantasy." Zheng was surprised and he laughed out loud. "That's what a kid should be like. The you before was just like someone I knew. Maybe he can be counted as a friend. You were too similar to him." Suddenly the main characters who were walking in front of them stopped. They seemed to be discussing something. Then Evelyn left with her brother while O'Connell walked into an alley. The group looked at each other and without a word they continued following him into the alley. Right as they made the turn, they saw O'Connell standing there and looking at them cautiously. "Fellow inmates, are you following me intentionally?" O'Connell taunted. Zheng was shocked. He remembered it was the same in Resident Evil. God gave them an identity in the movie world. They were security guards back then and prisoners right now. Zheng had an idea and laughed. "Ho ho, I heard you talking about Hamunaptra." O'Connell immediately reached for his back, but he forgot he was just released from the jail and there was no gun on him. Then he saw Zheng take out a strange gun and put up his hands. "Haha, you must be mistaken, bro. What Hamunaptra?" Zheng put away his gun with a smile. "Ho ho, I don't want to say anything else. I mean no harm, just that I hope you can take us to Hamunaptra. I will be responsible for your safety. In fact, we were the ones that saved you before." O'Connell looked at him in confusion. Zheng smiled at 0 then pointed to a pointed steel bar on top of a building. It was at least 1,000 meters away, they could barely see that bar. O'Connell also looked over, then with a small buzz, the steel bar snapped. O'Connell looked at them in shock just to see 0 putting away a strange-looking handgun. It was just after World War I, so there weren't even semi-automatics, not to mention a handgun with a range of over 1,000 meters. The gun 0 had was tech from the 21st century. Whether it was the silencer, or its range, or 0's ability, all shocked O'Connell. He stood there with his mouth open wide and after quite a while, he said, "Don't point the gun at me. Just don't. This could be considered physical threat." Zheng smiled slowly as he followed behind O'Connell. In fact, the whole time Hunglu was observing his actions without him noticing. The boy showed a smile of acknowledgement after he took care of O'Connell. O'Connell was essentially forced to accept their request to bring them to Hamunaptra. Of course, Zheng then gave him 2 gold bars which made him feel better. Without a choice, he brought Zheng and the others back to his inn. O'Connell seemed like a regular here. He hit up a conversation with a blonde young man as soon as he stepped inside. Basically about how he stayed in jail for a few days and almost got hanged. After a while, O'Connell turned to Zheng. You guys stay here, I will go sell the gold first and buy some guns and ammo. Of course I don't think you guys need any guns, right? Then he pointed at Zero with a laugh. Zheng also laughed. He knew O'Connell was someone that could keep his promises from the movie. But because of the 5,000 meter limitation, he took out another gold bar from the ring and said, due to various reasons, we have to follow you around. But we won't be stingy with money. Don't worry, we are aware of some people guarding Hamunaptra. We will deal with them when we encounter them. I only wish to find Hamunaptra. O'Connell looked at Zheng in confusion. He grabbed the gold bar and said, then let's hurry. I promised that woman to meet up at Giza Port tomorrow morning. It's not safe to enter the black market at night. Let's go. They returned to the inn shortly after. O'Connell exchanged the gold bars for a large sum of cash and coins easily. Not only did he buy himself a bag of weapons but also new clothes and shoes. When they got back to the inn, he had opened up to Zheng's group. The inn wasn't too big but the rooms had everything necessary. During dinner, O'Connell began to talk about his experiences as a soldier, especially the time he entered Hamunaptra 3 years ago, and how he escaped from the desert. We received an order to look for the city of the dead, which had an unlimited amount of gold. Ho, I almost suspected you'd found the gold from there anyway. After we'd eaten enough sand, Hamunaptra finally came into our sight on a nice day. The pharaoh's tomb, the books of the living and the dead, and a large amount of gold. After we reached it, we only had the opportunity to do some simple exploration before we were attacked by a group in black clothes. They wanted to kill all of us. I escaped after encountering a strange event. I was going to get killed but the ground I was standing on suddenly elevated. It was the face of a man, probably the spirit that guards the tomb. Ahem. Anyway, I was the only one that escaped alive. Then I was faced with the endless desert. O'Connell took a gulp of his tequila then continued. Back then I had no supplies or clean water. And it takes 3 days to reach the nearest oasis from Hamunaptra. That's the desert. Without any horses, or camels, it would take at least 5 days of walking. Under those harsh temperatures and conditions, any human would have become a jerky. At the 3rd day, I started eating snakes and scorpions, using their blood to moisturize my throat. Then at night I would dig through layers of sand for the wet sand underneath. I didn't know how I made it to the oasis. I probably looked like a mummy by then. Haha. Even though he said it in a normal tone, but the dangers and difficulties were there. Some of them comforted him while Zero and the rest were eating their meals with indifference. O'Connell suddenly said, why do you want to find Hamunaptra? The gold that you gave me is of the purest quality. And you don't even seem to care that much, just like you are filthy rich. Is the gold from Hamunaptra really that attractive to you? Zheng smiled bitterly as he drank his tequila. If I say I am not here for the gold, but rather that we will die if we don't go there, would you believe it? It sounds so implausible. Is it a curse? Whatever, I don't know anything about it anyway. I will do what I promised. We will leave for Hamunaptra tomorrow. I hope I don't have to run away this time. That will be difficult. The few of them that knew the plot laughed. In the plot, O'Connell's group unleashed Imhotep and had to run away to Cairo. Even though they had ample supplies, but being chased by a mummy wasn't the best feeling. Good. Then we will leave for Hamunaptra tomorrow. Zheng raised his tequila to O'Connell and nodded with determination. With a devious smile Lan suddenly said, right, we still need to buy one more thing. That will be our amulet. What's it? Everyone asked at the same time, including Zheng and O'Connell. A cat? By noon the next day, O'Connell brought everyone to Giza Port. Evelyn and her brother, Jonathan, were already waiting there. They let out a sigh of relief after seeing O'Connell, but they also noticed Zheng's group following behind O'Connell and showed signs of caution. Evelyn was rather straightforward. Once O'Connell came close, she immediately asked, didn't you say you were only bringing us? Why are there so many people? Just to make it clear, I won't pay for their expenses. You're O'Connell? O'Connell was covered in dirt while he was in jail, but after cleaning up and getting new clothes, he looked rather handsome. Before he had the chance to reply, Evelyn was totally stunned. Hi. Haha, today's a nice day for adventure. There's no harm in having more people, but are they trustworthy? Of course, you know I am referring to the gold. There isn't enough gold to split among so many people. Jonathan laughed as he asked O'Connell in a low voice. O'Connell nodded. Yeah, the weather is suitable for adventure. As to them, they are probably not interested in gold. Plus they will protect us on the journey. What I am more concerned about. He reached into his pockets and took a look at his wallet. Jonathan was a skilled thief. He laughed awkwardly. Don't worry, I won't steal from our own people. Ho, you mentioned they aren't interested in gold. Then that means they are rich. Zheng walked over to the three of them and laughed. Ho, I heard what you said. My name is Zhenjia, and these are my comrades. We are an expedition group sponsored by an American billionaire. Our mission is to find all the possible secret places in the world. Of course, the legendary city of the dead is one of these secret places. We will take care of the expenses in the journey and provide you with adequate protection. Of course you have to listen to our advice and not do anything that will put us in danger. That's basically it. Evelyn had been staring at O'Connell the whole time and didn't wake up until Zheng began talking. What? We didn't join your expedition group. We are looking for the city of the dead as private citizens. Why do we have to listen to your advice? We don't need you to pay for our expenses, we can afford them ourselves. Zheng shook his head and said, I think you're mistaken. Our mission is exploration, we are not interested in the gold. Her reaction intensified. With her face red, she virtually shouted, I understand it now. Your goal is the Book of the Dead and Book of Amun-Re, right? Impossible. Even if such ancient literatures exist, we couldn't hand them to some rich guy. These literatures are historical treasures, I won't let you have them. Zheng noticed people around were giving them strange looks, and even sensed some hostility. He shook his head and said, fine. We are not taking anything, okay. Just for exploration, exploration only. Women, everyone is paranoid. Then he boarded the ship. Evelyn still wouldn't give up. She pulled O'Connell's shirt. Can you promise they are telling the truth? I don't care, you brought them here. You have to promise they won't take those 2 books. Otherwise, I warn you. O'Connell could only smile with bitterness, especially when he saw Zheng's group had already boarded the ship. Anyway, he finally took care of Evelyn, and by the time he boarded the ship, Zheng had already bought the majority of its first-class rooms with his gold. And Jonathan seemingly became best friends with him after receiving a gold nugget. Of course anyone who had seen the movie would know to avoid him, because he was a capable thief. O'Connell opened up a crude map on the table. While pointing to various locations he said, following this river, we will get off the ship by noon tomorrow. Then we will walk west for about half a day and reach the biggest, and only, oasis on the way to Hamunaptra. That's also the place for merchants to exchange items. We will buy the camels and supplies then. After that, we will go southwest and we should reach it after 3 days and nights if there are no accidents. Evelyn asked, accidents? What accidents? O'Connell didn't say anything. He suddenly threw his bag on the table and opened it up. The bag was filled with handguns, rifles, and bullets. Enough for every one of them. Evelyn was shocked. Did I mistake something? We are here for an expedition, right? Or are we here for a war? O'Connell didn't answer her and loaded a handgun. Lady, that place isn't safe. There's something under the tomb and it was guarded by a mysterious group. It is literally the city of the dead. Evelyn immediately turned to Zheng. Didn't you say you will protect us? I only want those 2 books, you can take everything else. Even though my brother believes there are treasures, I don't think you will actually find gold. Zheng nodded. I told you we are only here for exploration. We are not interested in anything else, but you seem to be familiar with those 2 books. Evelyn replied excitedly, of course, the legendary Book of Amun-Re, also called the Golden Book of Revival, different from the movie, and the Book of the Dead. These 2 books contained ancient Egyptian spells. They made me fall in love with Egypt. Hunglu interrupted her suddenly, what time is it? They were taken aback for a moment. Zheng looked at his watch and said, 10 o'clock. He paused and saw Hunglu nod. Lan had told everyone the plot of the mummy in the inn last night. Perhaps due to her enhanced mental capacity, she had amazing memory and told them every little detail of the plot. Zheng then remembered that they would be attacked by the Medjay at nighttime, about this hour. Evelyn, go get the K, go get the map and that puzzle box. 0NG, go protect her. O'Connell, come find Jonathan with me, he should be playing poker with the Americans. Everyone else, stand guard here. If anything happens, follow Lan, Tenji and Yingkong's orders. Let's go. The story starts now. Zheng stood up and took his progressive knife out from the ring, then headed to the deck. Jonathan was playing poker with the Americans. One could tell his luck by looking at his expression. There was a gold nugget next to the American sitting in front of him. He had obviously lost the gold nugget Zheng gave him. Hi guys, want to play a few rounds too? Jonathan said as he noticed Zheng and O'Connell. Even though Zheng was holding the progressive knife, it had such a plain look that no one would have guessed its sharpness. O'Connell was a bit confused. He asked Zheng. What's happening? You're acting strange. Before he finished the sentence, gunshots came from across the ship and the back of the ship started smoking. While everyone was in shock, one of the waiters fell to the ground as blood came out of his chest. The Americans were the first to respond. They immediately pulled out their guns and began shooting. O'Connell wasn't slow either. He quickly swept the gold nugget and the cash on the table, then ran toward Zheng. Zheng held onto his knife and took out his submachine gun. O'Connell, protect Jonathan and meet up with the others in the cabin. O'Connell pulled out 2 handguns and muttered. These men in black. How did they find out we are going to Hamunaptra? And there are so many of them. Yeah, this is too freaking many. Zheng remembered in the original movie, there were only about 10 assassins that attacked the ship. Aside from lighting it on fire, there weren't enough of them to kill everyone. Yet perhaps the involvement of Zheng's group made the assassins feel threatened. There were several dozens of them and even more climbing on the ship. The power of his submachine gun could rival the heavy machine guns of this era. Zheng sprayed at the edge of the ship, breaking it and causing 10 of the men in black to fall off. Everyone looked at him in shock for a moment. Since normal bullets weren't expensive, Zheng sprayed liberally and shot a lot of the men off the ship. Still good. Zheng had been protecting O'Connell and Jonathan's backs. Fortunately these problems can be solved with guns. I miss being about to solve things this way. Jonathan turned around and asked. What can't be solved with guns? Like spirits and... Zheng suddenly sensed danger and stepped in front of Jonathan with his knife, blocking 2 stray bullets. And luck. Jonathan was also shocked. He patted Zheng on the shoulder and said. Nice brother, nice, handgun. It was as though stealing was an instinct. Jonathan pulled a gun from Zheng's pocket without thinking and began shooting. Zheng and O'Connell laughed as they shook their heads. It didn't take long for them to reach the others. Evelyn, 0, and G had brought back the puzzle box and map. The ship was smoking at all sides by this time. Beside the group were 10 men in black lying on the floor, with a finger-sized hole in their chests. Yingkong was cleaning her nails with a napkin. No one would have guessed this little girl just killed 10 people barehanded by that indifference look of her face. Zheng put back his knife and gun and smiled. Are you all ready? O'Connell replied immediately with a laugh. Of course, I remember the shore is at this direction. Jonathan was in a daze. What ready? Hey, O'Connell, what did he mean by ready? Zheng didn't explain anything. He threw Jonathan into the river and took back his gun at the same time. Evelyn screamed and grabbed onto O'Connell when Zheng reached for her. Zheng couldn't help but took back his hand when Lan suddenly ran into his arms. 0 and Yingkong already jumped into the river. Then, let's go. He also jumped with a laugh. Even though this was a movie, but he had already interacted with the characters. Furthermore, this movie wasn't as dangerous as the ones before, at least for now. So he got a little excited with the adventure. The river wasn't flowing too fast. The group didn't get washed away by the stream. They followed behind O'Connell to the shore. The ship behind them was already engulfed in a flame. They could faintly make out another group also jumped off the ship. Although none of them were particularly good with water, they managed to swim to the shore helping each other. Once they got on, Evelyn screamed. My God. My tools, my clothes, and all my writings are gone. God. Land had it at ease through the whole thing. She grabbed onto Zheng during the swim while holding onto a black cat with her other hand. When they reached the shore, the cat was still staying in her arm without moving much. Suddenly, a cunning man shouted from across the river. O'Connell. Hey, O'Connell. Haha, it looks like you have it rough. The horses are all on this side. Haha. Hey, Benny. Looks like you are on the wrong side of the river. Haha. They had to face reality after laughing. Without any tools for transportation, the group had to walk over half a day to reach the oasis. There were some desert plants on the way and between some chatting on the way, time wasn't unbearable. Zhen walked beside Honglu and asked him in a low voice. We are getting close to Hamunaptra. How much chance do you think we have? What is victory condition? Avoid them. Kill them. Or finish this movie as fast as possible, eliminate Imhotep. Victory condition, survive. Have the majority survive. Zheng thought about it then nodded with determination. The probability would be 10%, no, 7%. It's too difficult to keep everyone alive. Even without an opposing team, Imhotep alone would be difficult enough. At least I can't think of any way to eliminate him. So, follow the original plot and use the Book of Amunare to bury him. As for the other team, to be honest, I am prepared to get killed. You shouldn't have too much hope. At least half our team will die. At least 5 people. Carrying this thought, or perhaps premonition, Zheng followed O'Connell to the largest oasis. This oasis had an abundant source of fresh water. It was just like a mini-city. It had most ordinary merchandise, especially camels. The group didn't take much time. After restocking fresh water and food, and buying 13 camels, they continued on the way to Hamunaptra. Even when they got tired, they would only take a nap on a camel. 3 days and nights passed and they were closer and closer to Hamunaptra. O'Connell and the other 2 characters had been living near the desert so they knew how to conserve energy. But Zheng and the others had it rough. Not only was it their first time riding camels, G and Zero were the only ones that had ever been to a desert. So after 3 days on the camel and the hotness of the desert, even Zheng was feeling rough, not to mention the others. Tenji, Liang, Heng, and Zuiyu were stumbling after they got off the camels. It was another midnight. Just as the group was getting accustomed to the desert, a group of several dozen people on horses rode toward them. The leader was Benny, another person that left Hamunaptra alive. Good morning, my friend. Benny shouted at O'Connell when he was still quite a distance from them. O'Connell didn't answer. He moved closer to them with the group. An American standing behind Benny asked. Why are we stopping? Didn't you say it's closer to Hamunaptra? Hurry up, why stop here? Benny replied calmly. My friend, be patient. Evelyn also asked in a low voice. What are we doing here? We wait, for our destination to appear. O'Connell also answered in a low voice. Then the American shouted. O'Connell, do you still remember your promise when gambling that day? Whoever enters the city first gets $500. Do you want to see who enters first? The sun was rising as he talked. Sunlight shone on the desert and a ruin gradually appeared. This was the legendary city of the dead. Several days of hardship on foot. Everyone was excited when they finally saw the destination. However, it was more complicated for Zheng's group. The only way they could return was eliminating Imhotep. But in order to do that, they had to revive him. Then they would have to face both Imhotep and another team. No, they must also kill one member from the other team to save the majority of this team. Words could not describe how they were feeling right now. Zheng's group moved over to the ruin of Hamunaptra. This was a magnificent ancient city. One could tell its glory from the remains even after several thousand years. Once inside the Hamunaptra, the 2 groups settled down together. Evelyn then dragged O'Connell to search for the entrance to the underground. The Americans were also looking for their entrance. Zheng discussed with his group and decided not to go with O'Connell. In contrast, they began to explore the terrain. The underground tomb is only 100 meter deep. O'Connell won't be more than 5,000 meters away from us after he entered the underground. So it's okay if we don't intervene with the plot. Let's get familiar with the surroundings first. 0. Find a place that's suitable for sniping. G, Tenji, and Hongla go look for a place suitable for fighting. Best if you can record them. The rest of you keep an eye out at all directions. Fire your gun once you see an enemy. Then everyone, let's fight for our lives. At least have the majority of us go back.